Hey guys, welcome back to Horror Movie Rewind. I'm Dustin. This video is going to be a little different than what I planned. I initially had thoughts of doing recaps for every episode up to where we're at now, which is 8 from Dexter Resurrection. But I'm too far behind on that. I mean, this channel is only about a week and a half older than the series itself. So I feel like everyone that wants to hear insight on episode 1, 3, 6, they've probably already found it somewhere else, and it's old news now. So what I'm going to do is this video, I'm going to touch on, I'm not going to give you a recap because I'm assuming you've watched it up to here. I'm going to talk about things I think are important. I'm going to talk about theories I have about things that's occurred, but we don't have a resolution or we haven't seen them play out or pan out. I'm going to give a couple of predictions going forward. I think we have 2 episodes left, and I'm going to talk about a couple of things that are just, I'm going to be critical, let's put it that way. In order to try to avoid being repetitive, I'm going to go get the criticism out of the way. That way I don't have to say, we'll get back to that later, like I, for some reason, habitually do pretty much every video that requires me to say so or doesn't. And the majority of that, and if you watch the video I did that I guess I could call a prologue, before I decided to condense this and not do episodic reviews, I talked about my disdain for New Blood, and essentially even the last episode, especially, but the last season of the original series, and just how Dexter was, the series, the universe was always about being meticulous and being careful and attention to detail. And for some reason, we have a Dexter character now that just seems to give no shits about that. Like, it's like contradictive to the character in my sense. So most of my criticisms are going to unfortunately center around that. And these are things that I was worried about before I started watching this series. It just began. But yeah, here we are. He continues to do stupid shit. And I'm going to just rail through a couple of those so I don't have to talk about them as much later. I might nod to them, but we'll start with, I think, the first or second episode. I was like, why the fuck's he doing that? Because when he's tracking Red, the rideshare killer, he makes a phone call from his phone in Red's apartment. Like, technology is a big part of all of these things, honestly. It's kind of the, like, overview, the main issue I have. But yeah, he's posing as him from that guy's apartment that he's broken into, by the way. We'll get to the lack of cameras next. Or whatever. Give a fuck about him. But yeah, he's calling and posing as this guy while he's in the apartment. And this is, keep in mind, a guy he intends to murder, right? So yeah, his lack of discretion, they're all kind of bundled together. I mean, as far as I know, unless I missed something, he still has a false identity in Iron Lake. And I know that Batista said he granted him his identity back, but his son showed up with a truck registered to Jim Lindsay, if I'm not mistaken, right? So he's just juggling these and acting as if, like, there aren't authorities that, if contacted or anything else, I mean, and they may have kind of smoothed some of this over, but yeah, like, he's just running around like it really is cool to be Dexter again. And he's also assuming that, like, Batista's the only person that's, like, obsessive over that. There's really not much more to say about that. Like, that just really kind of shoddy writing, I guess, more than anything. But yeah, he's just running around like it's nothing. I was another guy, just a couple of counties up. Cameras is a big one for me, and this is not, it transcends just Dexter, but okay, the only explanation we've gotten is somehow miraculously Harrison, and what I kind of did some math on, at best, he had been working at the hotel for 6 weeks, just judging by or gauging from what Dexter was told while he was in the hospital by the new Gomer Pyle or just inept acting sheriff. So he's been there 6 weeks, Harrison has, at the hotel, and he's walking through a kitchen, just grabbing food off the chef's table and eating it and throwing it away immediately after. Just disrespectful. I've worked in like service industry for a long time. But they give an explanation for him being Solid Snake, like his fucking Metal Gear Solid, that he's not caught on any cameras, leaving I can't remember the guy's name, but the guy he killed with the toilet lid or the back of the toilet, leaving there. Somehow there's no camera footage of him transporting a body down there. Now, we've seen it ourselves. I think he takes like a cleaner's cart or something, puts him in. I don't quite remember. It doesn't matter, because somehow we're expected to believe that he removes a body from that room and gets it from point A to point B being the kitchen, which, okay, he is Patrick Bateman in that kitchen with the body, just butchering it. And now I have to assume that this high-end hotel and their kitchen would have camera systems, because again, if I'm not mistaken, this is 2025 that this show is supposed to be set in, right? But he does all this, goes there, dissects a body into 9 parts, and none of that's on camera. And then same thing with Dexter, right? Just a lack of give a fuck, again, of the fact that there might be Big Brother, like, having its eyes on you. And I could go down the list with Dexter on that. I'll name a few, but even like, well, hell, gaining access to Red's apartment. Most apartment complexes, especially shittier ones, they have some like sense of security cameras. And he waltzes in again. Like I said, he also makes a phone call with his personal phone in that apartment, placing him, if someone were to backtrack, in that guy's apartment, which at the very least would be suspicious. But so you got that part, and then you got this right here. I actually got a clip for it where just it's getting absurd at this point. But he sets up to kill in a wig shop, tapes the windows, and never mind that this is New York City. And I mean, I live in a town, or I work in a city that's bigger, and I think it's just shy of 100,000 people. So it's by no means a metropolis, but there are cameras on every corner. So we didn't see him taping the windows up of the wig shop, but we do see Batista's inept ass walk right by it and initially not notice the first time he went by there. And that's another thing I'll talk about later, but damn, I did it once. There we go. I'll keep a count of it. He's taping these windows up like there's nothing recording him except for this clip right here where he's actually in there putting the plastic up. And if you look in the top corner, there is clearly what is a video camera. I would like to say that maybe that's something that comes back to bite him in his ass. But if you watch the episode, we know that it doesn't. In fact, it makes Batista look like a fool. So, yeah, just in every facet, like there's so many things where like he's just so like reckless abandon, like walking around like he's not being watched, at least by technology. Now, the last thing I'm going to say on the rant, I might have a couple other come up when I get to the actual cool stuff, is the bigger one to me is his absolute, and now I will say this, I'll preface it with this. Said before, Dexter's either the luckiest motherfucker alive, or, he, as we've seen in the original series, not so much in New Blood, but a lot of times they'll present us with an issue and like the audience sees it, us, like, you know, and maybe he doesn't know about it, or maybe he finds out and it's like a plot line to like heighten tension and something we should be worried about because he's worried about it, you know, something possibly incriminating or dangerous. And a lot of times, especially in the original series, he turns it on its head and he actually uses against the perpetrator, or he finds a way to pin it on someone else. We've actually seen him do that in this series so far. But, you know, the whole thing with him masquerading as Red, they make a big deal out of the fingerprint on the invitation. You know, that's funny too. Like, why the hell would they list that on there? Wouldn't that be something like if you wanted to, I mean, I don't know. It looked like he used paraffin wax and made a mold of the fingerprint, but wouldn't that be something like if you like want to be sure that somebody is who they are, that you catch them off guard when they get there, instead of tell them, also be prepared, bring your thumb with you because you're going to need it to get in the, into the mansion. Again, there's a lot of shit, but, you know, that's not really the point of what I'm saying right now. Just a little aside. He struggles, you know, it's like, I think at least 3 attempts before it finally works. And you got Charlie Uma Thurman's character standing there like with this doubtful look on her face, like suspicious to say the least. And he says, oh, sweaty. And then it works, right? Well, less than 5 minutes later, he does one of the most incredibly stupid fucking things that he has ever done. And he walks into this, like, basically the Smithsonian of serial killer, like, memorabilia with Prater. And, you know, walks by pogo suit and blah, 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 all this stuff. He walks by the New York Ripper. I'll get back to that towards the end of the video because that's a theory I got, or a prediction. But anyways, he's lost his ability to not show his hand in a sense as well, because, and oddly, like, I've got a replica ghost face mask with 6 or 7 signatures on it, and I keep it in like an acrylic case. But one of the only items in Prater's museum or collection that wasn't encased, well, imagine that, were the Bay Harbor Butchers slide collection, 1 of 2. Because Dexter burns another one. But what does Dexter do? Someone that's posing as someone else shows no interest in, like, you know, I mean, he feigns interest, fakes it with some of the other items. I mean, hell, he didn't even recognize the John Wayne Gacy clown suit. But he immediately walks over and, again, fingerprint to enter, right? And he goes, runs his hand down it. This is like screen time 5 minutes, maybe later. And it didn't go unnoticed by Prater. He says, no touching. So this is a billionaire with everything to lose and everything at his disposal as far as resources go. And so Dexter just runs over, touches that. Now, I don't know if you can pull a print from something that thin, but I got to imagine like that there's some kind of DNA testing, something else. And kind of back to what I said earlier about facial recognition, wouldn't you think that this guy has like some kind of facial recognition technology, if, again, has everything to lose? Like, you know, he, like, I don't know necessarily about the crimes that he could be implemented for, but it would fuck his whole life up. And the fact that what I'm recording through right now, like to unlock it, I can use facial recognition. You don't think that he has a security system that does such? And if for no other reason, again, like even if it was slight paranoia, that he checks the faces of anyone that he brings around in such incriminating situations. Yeah. So I'm going to play this clip. I don't really even need to, but of Dexter touching it. Matter of fact, I'm not going to, because we just talked about it. And if you watch the show, you remember it. But like just some of the incredibly stupid shit he's done. And you probably nitpick anything. It's a TV show, but this one's just even more asinine because it is a TV show and a character based in every single small microscopic detail. And it's getting harder and harder to take serious or even keep interest in, because like now I'm playing, ironically, the role of someone, TV talking, saying, all right, well, you fucked up right there. All right, enough bitching. All right, guys, so this is already running a little bit longer than I want it to. So I'm going to get to the meat and potatoes, the fun part, after all the ranting and etc. And right now, I'm going to try to do this in less than 10 minutes. I'm going to run through my thoughts, theories so far, and I'm going to give you 2 predictions, like what do they call them, like hot takes at the very end. But I'm going to do it in character, like bullet points. So I'm going to start with Prater. I mean, the guy's essentially omnipotent. It's silly to me, like I mentioned before, that Dexter didn't think that he's watched his every move. So yeah, like we said at the end of 8, like how's that a surprise? Again, that just goes back to portraying Dexter as absolutely inept and lackadaisical, lazy, and uncharacteristic of him. Now, again, maybe it's something that is by design. Who knows? But I do think it was interesting that Prater shared the story with Dexter. We find out that even though he doesn't know that Dexter is Dexter, they had similar childhood trauma, essentially both watching Prater watched both of his parents. Dexter watched his mother pass away. And probably the most important thing about him, and it kind of ties back to the first thing I said, is like, it's stupid to me that Dexter doesn't realize, and I have to think that Prater knows exactly who Dexter is. And like, especially after things that's transpired in the last couple of episodes, notably killing Gemini. And okay, so that's that. And I got one more thing to say about Prater, but we're going to stick that at the bottom before I finish up in a prediction. Batista, I don't really have much to say on, except for it kind of pisses me off I didn't do this video last week, because like word for word shit that I told my wife about him, just basically how like outside of the law he was acting and how he had no jurisdiction, how honestly, it's kind of silly overall that he is like allowed in, like, the whole thing with Detective Wallace letting him in. We know how that didn't like pan out because, well, Lady Vengeance was murdered essentially. But overall, like, I'm kind of sad and pissed off at the way they treated the Batista character. I don't know that he makes it out of this season. I don't really see any way that he does. But yeah, they've just made a buffoon of him, and yeah, that's pretty much it on Batista. Kind of sucks. Again, like I've said before, I'm a pretty big proponent of the fact that I think Dexter should have stayed dead, and they should have never done anything after the original series. Harrison, the whole like, is he not? Like, shit's getting old to me. I like the actor. I like the character for the most part. I do have, I'm not going to call it one of my predictions, but like, I could see an avenue, but I don't think they'll do it because Mikey Hall is kind of the show. Now, we learned that when Original Sin got canceled, even after they renewed it. So, but I had a thought a couple episodes back that the only way Dex dies in this is if they kind of turn the, he hands the torch to Harrison, and then we figured out. But like, get to the point on that one. I'm tired of like, is he like his dad? Is he not? Charlie, like Uma Thurman's character, I really have no idea, and I guess it's her mom. That's what my wife said. I think I missed like that detail being given out. The lady that she's seeing in the hospital. I am curious about her, but like I don't really have any like speculation on it. How you get that job, et cetera, et cetera. Now, Detective Wallace shows classic, like not symptoms, what's the word? She looks like she's a sociopath, or at least a psychopath. Just the way she operates, speaks, like her robotic and just, there seems to be no emotion attached except for achieving a goal. I have an outside feeling that she may very well be the New York Ripper herself, due to the fact that she's constantly kind of intertwined with that. Now, like, they haven't really said that was the one that got away from her, but obviously at Collins, whatever College of Criminal Investigation, she's doing lectures on it. And, if you can't see the way that character is portrayed and like understand the shit I said a moment ago about like, this classic like mental illness, sociopath or psychopathic like mannerisms essentially. So yeah, I can see an avenue where she's the New York Ripper, and now I'm about to get to my predictions, but and they don't necessarily, one doesn't have to like cancel out the other, but yeah, I'm still keeping that one in the pocket. But now here's my two bold, I guess like in sports talk, like they call it, hot takes. And the first one's going to be Gigi, the blonde-headed chick that Harrison's met at college. She's the New York Ripper. Or, and this is really superficial, put a picture of John Lithgow beside that girl. They look very, very similar. She's the daughter of Trinity. So just because she's Trinity's daughter doesn't mean that she's a New York Ripper. Maybe Detective Wallace can be the Ripper. But here's my big thing with Gigi is we're seeing in the last episode, 2 episodes, this budding relationship with her and Harrison. And what else purpose does the Elsa character serve? Then unfortunately what I think is going to happen, and that is probably in the next episode, we're going to see, or maybe it's the final episode. I think there's 2 left. Like I said, we're going to see Gigi and Harrison, keep like, the end of the last episode, they're fucking, they're, basically a couple. I feel like you're going to have that classic trope where she goes to surprise them and like Elsa gives Harrison a hug. We already know that theirs is purely platonic because Harrison did try to kiss her when she allowed him to stay at her apartment episodes back. But she's not going to know that. And also, I'm absolutely saying that Gigi has a dark side for maybe I'm making it lightly, but I'm saying that she's going to kill Elsa. I don't know where it's going to go from there. And I'm going to kind of back up. I don't know if she's a New York Ripper or not. I do feel oddly good with really no proof that she's kin to Trinity just because of the references that have been made to him in New Blood. And like, even in this series, we've seen his, the Phantom version of him or whatever, the imagination version that Dexter was talking to in his coma. But yeah, I'm saying Gigi kills Elsa. And yeah, she's a murderer. I'm also going to say that they're going to twist just basically something they do in essentially every like season of the original series, which is Dexter gets the big bad at the end one way or the other, even if it costs them, people he loves and stuff. And obviously logic would dictate that would be Prater, even though oddly he has been more concerned with picking off the collection of serial killers that Prater has amassed. He hasn't really spent a whole lot of time talking about it, but that's the end game, right? And I don't think that happens. And honestly, I hope it doesn't, because Peter Dinklage is killing that role. Like, not necessarily the character itself, but as far as the acting goes, he's my favorite person to watch on screen. And he doesn't get a lot of screen time, but in my mind, and when I think back on episodes, he usually eats that time up, and he is memorable. And like on a like latent level, it's not because he's over the top. But I think instead of Dexter getting him on a table, I think they're going to try to like surprise with Prater's going to end up having to save Dexter's ass somehow, and which is not outside the realm of possibility at all, because again, Prater pretty much has everything at his disposal. He's a billionaire, and instead of Dexter killing the final boss, I think Prater's going to end up saving his ass. And I don't have a lot to base that on, except for the fact that it would just be a twist and, outside the norm for not only the original series, but pretty much the Dexter universe as a whole. And the fact that he is not a killer himself, so he's not really ordering anything. He doesn't fit the code in a weird way. Like technically these guys aren't killing for him. They're just providing memorabilia for him with what they were going to do anyway. So, yeah, my two big predictions, my hot takes. Gigi is going to kill Elsa, and she's going to be revealed to be a murderer, not a serial killer, because we don't just have one-off murderers except for Harrison. But, and one of the two of them, I'm saying that now, because I'm going to insert a clip right here.
Keep us healthy. This was the New York Rippers, a man who terrorized.
And it's when Prater says they never caught the man. And it was real distinct the way he said it. And after going back and watching it again, I think that's why the New York Ripper is going to be revealed, because we haven't seen shit about that killer, but they keep name dropping it. They want you to remember it. So I think it's going to be a woman, and it's very easy for me to expect it to be either Detective Wallace or Gigi, and maybe both of them are murderers. But I think Gigi kills Elsa, and I think Prater saves Dexter's ass. And I appreciate it if you've made it this far. And once again, I'm Dustin. Thanks for coming to Horror Movie Rewind. And hopefully from here on out, I'll do episodic reviews. Later, guys. Appreciate you.